Hi there. That's the sound of the day, and it belongs to one of the most fast-moving groups in the country, the Turtles.
Imagine me. And hold you tight, so happy together. If I should call you up, invest a dime, and you say you belong to me, and ease my mind. Imagine how the world could be so very fine, so happy together. I can't see me loving nobody but you for all my life. When you're with me, baby, the skies will be blue for all my life. Me and you and me, no matter how they toss the dice, it had to be. The only one for me is you, and you for me, so happy together. I can't see me loving nobody but you for all my life. When you're with me, baby, the skies will be blue for all my life. Me and you and me, no matter how they toss the dice, it had to be. The only one for me is you, and you for me, so happy together. The dice, it had to be. The only one for me is you, and you for me, so happy together, so happy together. And how is the weather? So happy together.
This is the Turtles that everyone remembers, but there was much more.
Top 10 hits Elenore, It Ain't Me, Babe, and You Showed Me, and the story of how a bunch of guys from Westchester High School in Los Angeles became one of America's top bands.
We met Bob Dylan, we met the Beatles, and we even played the White House.
But while everyone knew our hits, nobody really knew what it was like to be a Turtle.
It all started from humble beginnings as a neighborhood surf band. Sit back, watch.
They were unique. All four of them were different and unique. The quietest one, in my memory, would be Al Nichols. He was the quietest, at least in my class he was. Chuck was the sportsman, the swimming star. Mark was the clown. Howard was the sort of stability of the foursome. Howard had a fabulous voice for a young man of 16 or 17 at the time.
Choir probably added a dimension to us as a local band of singers that a lot of the other bands didn't have as a part of their career, even in high school. Was we learned about part singing. We learned that you could put different people on different notes, and we didn't really understand music that well at the time to know exactly what we were doing, but we knew that we could add different notes and sing in parts because we were singing already in parts in a cappella choir.
I've always been attracted to funny people, so when he asked about joining the group, especially when he answered that he had no particular skills at all, I was sold. You know, I thought the band could really use this guy and a little levity, something to lighten up the situation, because it was not a happy band. It was a band that was concentrating on the music, on getting it right, and having Mark in the band, it just turned into a fun situation.
Mark would get up on stage and he'd sing a couple of duets with Howard. You know, this is the early days of the Crossfires, and Al would go, "Well, that's real nice." And Howard would keep pushing for Mark to be a permanent member, and Al would say, "Absolutely not. This guy doesn't play an instrument. I'm not going to pay him."
We were a surfing band, so essentially we were playing pretty much about 90% instrumental music. And I had picked up a saxophone at kind of the demand of my father that I begin making the same amount of money as the rest of the guys. We kind of honked our way through the hits of the late 50s and early 60s, which was at the time pretty much Dick Dale and the Deltones and the Surfaris and the Rhythm Rockers and the Lively Ones. And we began adding more singing to the band when I started being more of a front man with Howard.
Mark and I were never the leaders of the Turtles in name. Our earliest business cards, even the Crossfire's business cards, in fact, have 2 phone numbers on them, Al Nichols and Don Murray's. We were never considered the leaders, Mark and I, only because we weren't musicians. To be a musician in the Turtles mean you had to play an instrument, you had to be a guitar player, you had to know 1, 3, 5 chord changes and stuff. We were sax players, we were singers, we were comics, so we really didn't know how to do that. And in the rest of the band's eyes, that diminished our position, I believe, a little bit. It was like, here's the band, and there are these 2 guys. I don't know about Mark, but for my own self, I had zip personality. I mean, I poured myself into the books and stuff, and I did pretty well in school, but as far as my social life, you know, I was a leper. You know, and therefore, after the Crossfires became a big band, and all of a sudden I was into my 2nd year of high school, and people were going, yo, rock and roller. It wasn't so much, yo, Neil Sedaka-looking nerd. You know, it was more like being accepted by your peers and beyond accepted, to the point where you were just sort of a local celebrity.
We worked with the Turtles at the Revel Air Club. They were the headliners, and we got to play 1 gig with the Turtles in Redondo Beach as Rick and the Ravens. They all had matching suits. Everyone had, as I recall, the Turtles all had matching suits. But then as Rick and the Ravens, we all had matching suits too. So everyone had matching suits. Everyone was a surf band at the time.
We wanted to be the Beatles so bad. We knew we couldn't be the Beatles because everybody knew what they looked like, but we knew we could get away with being Jerry and the Pacemakers because nobody knew what they looked like. So we would go into these bars and restaurants and introduce ourselves as Jerry and the Pacemakers from England. And
we all knew the names of the different guys.
We all knew the names. Freddie Marsden, my brother.
Yes.
And then we'd order white tea, please. Can we have white tea and dry toast bickies, please?
And they would look at us like, what?
You know, white tea. Take the tea with milk in it and give us a dry bicky on the side so we can dunk it, say.
Al was married with a child. Don was married with a child on the way. Al couldn't survive on the $40 or $50 a weekend we were earning as a surfing band.
We were becoming adults, and we did not know what to do. We started this rock and roll dream as high school kids, and now that we were adults and had to earn a living at it, we were between a rock and a hard place, to coin a phrase. We really didn't know what to do. Al was the guy instrumental in coming to us and saying, look, I can't live like this. We scribbled out a resignation note, and I was elected to take it upstairs to the office in the back and give it to Bill Utley, Reb Foster's cousin, explaining why we were resigning and that we couldn't afford to do this kind of thing anymore. And literally
There
on
were
the way up the stairs.
Two guys had been brought in by Bill and Reb to hear us play that night, and had literally grabbed us as we were going upstairs and said that they liked the way that it sounded singing the bird songs.
Yeah,
and all
Mr.
the
Tambourine
harmonies.
Man had just come out the week before, and we did the bird songs, and the guy said, yes, this is great, folk rock is the new direction, come up with a few more of these, we'll take you into the studio, let's make a record.
And the way that everybody in the band, but myself, had conceptualized it was to make it sound like Mr. Tambourine Man. And I'd stopped the rehearsal dead, and I said, okay, this is not happening, because when people hear this, all they're going to hear is, oh, these guys sound like the Byrds. So I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to start off with the rhythm guitar, and then we're going to bring in the tambourine. And then when we get into the chorus, Chuck's going to play a Motown line, and I'm going to play Motown drums, and then we're going to soften up for the second verse and go back to the rhythm guitar and tambourine and bring in the 12-string. And so what it ended up to be was that the It Ain't Me Babe record was a complete departure of what everybody thought folk rock was.
Reb Foster, brilliant disc jockey that he was, saw that the English invasion had taken a firm hold in America and said, I've had this name rattling around in my brain. How would you guys like to be the Turtles? We thought he was crazy. Stupid, fat, green things. We laughed. We held our sides. We said,
thought he
"You're
was kind of
crazy."
making fun of us. We had picked out the name, the Six Pack and the Half Dozen and other names we thought would work for the six of us. And we thought actually the name Turtles was kind of stupid at the time, because we felt that he was kind of picking on the way that we looked and the fact that
we were slow and we were clunky and it wouldn't work. But he pointed out to us, not so, not so. First of all, it's an animal-sounding name. It has a T-L-E-S ending, much like the Beatles. It's going to be on a brand new label, and there were so many new labels releasing independent English stuff at the time that we would probably be mistaken for a British band, which is exactly what happened.
The records that were made in the 60s, for the large part, that were successful, were made with one group of studio musicians playing, the Byrds and and the Mamas and Papas and the association records that I made all had the same rhythm section on them. The Turtles were great in that they could play on their own records.
So all of a sudden, these guys from Westchester High School find ourselves signed up to join Dick Clark's Caravan of Stars and meet the tour in Chicago. We're so psyched. We can't believe this, a national tour. So we go to the Hilton Hotel, is that it, in Chicago?
Yes.
And we're meeting all the people we're about to tour with. Tom Jones is on this tour, Peter and Gordon, and the Shirelles, and Billy Joe Royal, and Ronnie Dove, and
Brian Hyland.
an endless list of stellar 60s figures to us, and we're so impressed. It's unbelievable. The first night we join the tour, we check into the hotel. Our guitar player, Al Nickel, goes to the park just to look at the hotel and go, gosh, it's great to be on the road. He gets mugged. He gets mugged, hit over the head. All his money is taken. He comes back. Chuck Portz gets into a fight with the veterans of foreign wars who have a convention in the hotel. We're the only long-haired weirdos there. He gets into a fight on the stairway with them.
They surrounded us immediately and called us slime and sluts. And when they were done drinking that night, they'd come back down and shoot us.
It's a nightmare. It's a horror show. We haven't even played our first gig yet. And we get onto the tour bus. We're escorted to our newly assigned seats in the back of the bus, the hip place to be.
With a broken air conditioner.
Now they lead us back to these seats in the back of the bus, and we notice with great glee that we're paired up with our idols. You know, that I'm getting to sit next to Gordon Waller from Peter and Gordon, and Mark sitting next to Tom Jones, the star of the show. And
right behind each other.
It's unbelievable. We're going, how did we luck out? How did we get these great seats? And then we figured it out. When the sun set that night and Tom and Gordon wanted to spread out on their seats, they kind of both looked at us and went, we said, well, what?
Like we should know. And we were told at the time by both of them that we were fortunate enough to have our own place to sleep, which was on the floor. Between the seats, there was just enough room for somebody to lay out and stretch out on the floor. And I remember very vividly laying on my floor area, looking under the seat in front of me, and there's Howard facing back, and we're kind of scrunched up with...
We waved to each other. We were learning from the best, man. We were learning from experts. We were seeing after a show Tom Jones go up to the window of the bus, and all these screaming girls, and they couldn't hear him. He was talking through the glass.
Oh, you love me, darling.
Oh, darling, you'd love to suck on Wendell, wouldn't you? Oh, he's getting a rise out of you there. You with the tits. Oh, show us your tits, darling. Oh, look at Wendell. Oh, he's a big boy now. He's growing. Oh.
And we really were shocked at the openness of the people on this tour. There was no doubt about it.
It was rock and roll. We were high school kids. We had no idea this was rock and roll. We just saw it as incredible fun. We ended the show with It Ain't Me, Babe, for his benefit largely, and also it was our biggest hit at the time. And we were paraded by him like it was the Queen, and it was some sort of a royal introduction. And everybody in the band shook his hand, and Bob was comatose. I mean, by all purposes.
Dark glasses, right at the time, were his big thing. The
dark glasses,
subterranean.
Laying down in a dish of pasta, I think, was his big thing.
He was like all bent over, kind of shaking out of this
Bob,
cloud.
You don't remember this night, but we all filed by you, and we shook your hand. And I was one of the last guys up there, if not the last guy up there, and you shook my hand. You looked up from your stupor, and you said, "That last song was great, man. You ought to record that thing. That's a..."
Voice impersonation.
And he was gone.
That was a
celebrity voice impersonation, and he was right back into his pasta again with cheese on his face. We were going, Bob, you wrote that song. Don't you remember? We already had a hit with that song.
It was kind of a shock for us to see that happen.
Please don't mistake me or try to make me the shadow of anybody else. I ain't the him or who you think I am. I'm just trying hard to be myself. Oh, society's goal is to be part of the whole. It may sound good to you, not to me. Let me be, could think like I want to. Let me be. missing you. I'm not a piece of clay to mold to move each day, and I'm not a pawn to be told how to move. I'm sorry, I'm not the fool you thought would play by your rules, but to each his own philosophy. Let me be the thing like I want to. Let me be. That's all I ask of you. I am what I am, and that's all I ever can be. I say that's all I ever can be. I say that's all I ever can be.
We'd sit at the dinner table